Okay, so I've got a bad master cylinder. That guy right there. When you step on the brakes and they sponge all the way down to the floor and then you have to pump them to stop, then you know your master cylinder is going out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to change it today. And we're going to get started with removing the strut bar. We're going to remove the battery for ease of access and remove your intake pipe. Okay, so we got all that out of the way. We've got the intake off there, got the strut tower brace out of the way, and got the battery out just to make it a little bit easier. So now you want to go ahead and disconnect this electrical connector that goes to the low brake fluid light switch. Get everything up and out of the way because we're not taking the power booster off. You just need to get all the stuff up and out of the way. And then we're going to go ahead and drain it. Disconnect, if it's a manual, disconnect the clutch fluid or the clutch fluid line. And then after you drain it all, you're going to take off these 3 10mm nuts that hold the lines to the master cylinder. And then there's only 2 12mm nuts that hold the master cylinder to the power booster. And then you've just taken it off, so we'll get that going on here in a second. Okay, so if you don't have a flare end wrench, a flare nut wrench, getting these things off, you're going to round the corners off. So what I do is I get a small hammer and I just get on there nice and snug and hold it and just kind of impact hit it, and eventually it'll loosen it on up for you. This one here, I could not get it by hand. You could see I started around it trying to do it by hand. So just a couple light taps with a hammer will break those threads loose, so you don't end up stripping those off. Because if you strip those off, you're going to create yourself one big headache you do not want. So that's my little trick. Hopefully it works for you. Okay, so the old one's off and all stripped down. I took it apart and looked at the O-ring inside of there, and it did look a little worn. So it was on its way out, at least. So here's the one I got from the junkyard. I cleaned it up a little bit, flushed all the fluid out of it inside. There's a little screw down there that you can take out, and then you can push all the fluid out of it that way. Clean the reservoir really good out with brake clean, and clean the magnet that floats up and down that tells you if your brake fluid's low or not. So anyway, I got it all nice and cleaned up. Now what you want to do is you're going to go ahead and clean up the brake booster a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer, and then put a little dab of grease on the end of this rod right here that goes into the master cylinder there. So give that a little bit extra lubrication, and then you're going to go ahead and start putting everything all back together. And then what you need to do is you actually need to bench bleed this. Now, this is really messy unless you have the right tools, which I do not. Boo-hoo. What you want to do is you want to fill up the reservoir with fluid, and then you want to go ahead and pump the rod until fluid comes out of all the holes there. I think that's how it works. Anyway, I'll let you know after I figure it out. But yeah, you want to go ahead and pump that and get fluid going through it so there's no air in it. When you put it back in, it'll be really easy to bleed. Alright, so now on to bench bleeding. What you want to do is I just found some old oxygen hoses from when my mother was using oxygen after the chemo. So you just hook those up. I cut the ends off of them so that they would fit nice and tight up against the threads. That one's coming out, but whatever. I'll put that one back in later. So anyway, now what you're going to do is you're going to take brake fluid from a sealed container. I just put it in this water bottle because it's really easy to pour out and it doesn't spill everywhere. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill it up to at least the minimum mark there, and then you're just going to go ahead and take a screwdriver or something, put it in the back there, and you're just going to go ahead and give it little pushes all the way up and back. And you're going to do that until you don't see any more fluid coming out of your lines here, coming out of where the 3 lines used to be. This here is just so the clutch fluid reservoir does not bleed out and make me lose all my fluid. So I'll get going on that and get it bench bled, and then I'm going to reinstall it in the car, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to hook them up because I don't want to lose my fluid out of there. So I've got a clever idea. Ooh. Alright, so I've cheated. I've gone ahead and skipped to the end. So what I did is I pulled each of those lines out individually and then slapped that on there, held pressure down so it got in the nice dome part, made contact, and then it didn't leak very much, and then I went ahead and threaded the nut on. I did that for all 3, and I lost very little fluid. And then make sure you tighten down your nuts here that hold the master cylinder onto the brake booster. And then make sure you connect all your wires up, and then it's just throw everything back together and you're good to go. Now, if you put this back together right and you bench bled it right, you step on the brakes. If you have a full normal brake pedal feel, then you do not need to bleed your brakes. But if you've got a little bit of a spongy feeling pedal or a questionable feeling pedal, bleed the brakes. Brake fluid is cheap, insurance is not. I'll tell you that right now. So I've gone ahead, and my little brother's helped me, and I've gone ahead and bled this system all out. And I had to bleed the clutch too because a little bit of air got in the line. So I went ahead and just bled the clutch again really quick, and that's good because the fluid that came out of it was just black. So you can't see it, but the fluid was pretty dirty even though I just flushed it out not too long ago. So it's a good preventive measure to go ahead and flush all your brakes after you do this anyway. And then your fluid should look like that, all nice and clear. And you shouldn't be able to see any black residue in there if you clean it all up good. So I guess that's about it. That's all I have to tell you about it. And hopefully now when I dynamite the brakes, it'll really stop good. Next is new front rotors and pads. Sweet. All right, take it easy, everybody. Hopefully this helps you.